Hey, Soul Recovery community, it's Rev Rachel, and I am just giving you that reminder to join me on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, Monday, for our monthly free Soul Recovery support group on Zoom. This is open and available to everyone. We come here together to share our soul recovery journey. I will speak on some soul recovery inspiration, and then we'll meet into small groups. If you've registered in the past, be on the lookout for that reminder email. And if you haven't registered, just jump on the website, recoveryoursoul.net, and I hope to see you there. Many of you have found this podcast because you, as I do, have adult kids who struggle with addiction. And maybe it's not addiction, maybe it's mental illness or some sort of dysfunction. And watching children that you love so much make choices that feel like not the right choices for you can be really tough. And having been sober for 7 years, of course, I want my kids to move into a sober sobriety lifestyle like I have. Just because I got sober at 48, I want them to not have to go through everything that I went through on all those years to get to where I am today. But what I recognize is that we are all on our own journeys. And the amount of energy that I have spent in trying to fix and help them had kept me from helping myself, had kept me from asking spirit, source, whatever you call it, to choose my own path and to find unconditional love that allows me to be present and loving to my kids no matter where they're at, in their season of sobriety or not. We are each on our own journey, in our own time, on our own path, and finding our own way. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Recover Your Soul podcast, a spiritual path to a happy and healthy life. My name is Reverend Rachel Harrison. I started Recover Your Soul after having profound changes in my life from my recovery of alcoholism, codependency, and control addiction. I was guided to share the tools and principles of spirituality and soul recovery to help others transform their lives as mine was transformed. For us to overcome external circumstances, we need to turn the attention to ourselves, focusing on our inner change and healing. Positive results in our lives will follow. Welcome to the Recovery Soul podcasting community. I'm Rev Rachel. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. I'm truly honored and grateful for this amazing community and that you continue to choose to come back week after week, or maybe you're new, maybe you're just checking it out, or we're glad you're here. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, I have a favor to ask you, and that is after you listen to this episode, will you just hit that 5-star button wherever you listen to this podcast so that we can continue to grow the community? Thank you. Today's episode is around addiction, and this is why many of you are here. Many of you found this podcast because I was so inspired by Al-Anon early on. You know, I got sober from my own addiction to alcoholism 7 years ago, and that was its own whole journey. And then I started attending Al-Anon with the same level of intensity that I was doing for my recovery from addiction, and really realized that my real issue was codependence, that I was so enmeshed with my family and I was so uncomfortable with their discomfort that drinking became my way of being in my body. And drinking's addictive. It just is. Alcohol is addictive. So I became addicted to alcohol, and it became my entire world for a while because I was uncomfortable in my entire world. So it kind of goes hand in hand in terms of what those are. And then I had 2 kids who are genetically predispositioned for addiction because their dad has the genetic predisposition for addiction. I have it too. It just is different for me, I think, the drinking than it is for them. And I've got these adult kids who are addicts. And I know many of you have come because I've talked about Al-Anon, and I've talked about how can we be in relationship with people who are either continuing to be in addiction or in recovery of their own choosing. And we're here in soul recovery to choose ourselves, to allow ourselves to be in these situations with people and to stop trying to control them and to come back to ourselves. And this episode is really around my adult children who continue to be addicts. And you know that a couple weeks ago, we had the episode that Bodhi shared about a season of sobriety that he's in. Well, the season's over, and that's hard. It's hard to wonder what that's going to look like. And although he hasn't completely fallen off the face of the planet on some, crazy ride, just the knowing that that season that really was being helpful to him is has taken a turn and he gets to choose. I recorded this episode at least once already and then got to almost to the end and realized I wasn't telling the story that I want to tell because it isn't about their story. And most of us come into these situations because we think it's about their story. And I can give you the information that is around the choices that my adult children are making to continue to choose to drink. And that's part of the story. That's definitely part of it. But the bigger reason we're here in soul recovery is because we are working really hard to choose our own happiness, to have a spiritual path for our own health, for our own well-being, for our own joy, for our own inner peace. And that may mean that the people around us continue to choose to be addicts. Are you ready to step into your soul recovery? Visit the website recoveryoursoul.net to learn more about the 9-step soul recovery process. I hope that you'll join us the first Monday of every month for the free soul recovery support group on Zoom, where we learn more about soul recovery and connect with each other. If you'd like to work directly with me to move through the 9-step soul recovery process, I'm here for you, but you can also choose to work the steps on your own with individual modules intended to support you to work at your own pace and on your own time. And if you want even more soul recovery, join us for the Recover Your Soul bonus podcast for Patreon members and Apple Podcast subscribers, where I interview amazing people sharing soul recovery tips for us and also do spiritual book studies. You can also find daily inspiration on Facebook and Instagram and join our private Facebook community. Visit the website for more information, links, and registration for everything. Back to the episode. I was reflecting on one of the most popular podcast episodes is the 3 C's of Al-Anon that I did 2 years ago. It's Al-Anon's 3 C's: didn't cause it, can't control it, and can't cure it. And between YouTube and on the regular Audible podcast on Spotify and Apple and every place that it is, it's been downloaded over 30,000 times. The other most popular one is around detachment, which I did in the first season, which was talking about Alex and using the detachment bookmark and how important that was in my life. And that one's been downloaded over 40,000 times. So these 2 episodes that are around Al-Anon concepts and how they've been so impactful in my own life have helped to bring you here. I'm not Al-Anon. I'm not speaking for Al-Anon. I am grateful for Al-Anon. And I know how incredibly important it was for me in those early years to begin to look at those principles, and they opened me up to something else. Well, in that episode of the 3 C's, there was a comment on the YouTube, because you can leave comments on YouTube, which is great. And most of the comments are always really positive. I've had in all of these years, just a handful of comments that are either frustrated that I'm talking about Al-Anon and it's not official Al-Anon literature. Totally get it. Understand those comments. And I'm, again, not here to be Al-Anon. And this one was one that I really thought a lot about. And her response was, you normalized it, meaning alcohol, as a coping mechanism when they were in their formative years. It is your fault. I've thought about this so much, and long before this comment, I thought about this, and I have episodes around, are we to blame? What is the remorse that we have around it? Because there is some truth that says I did raise my kids in a home where alcohol was normal, and it was normalized as the coping mechanism. And when I'm in these situations where I'm watching my children choosing alcohol as their coping mechanism, as their reward, as their solution, there is a part of me that thinks if I had done it different, if I had been different, if I had not had it in our lives at all, then it would be different. Well, just the other day, as Alex was opening his Easter basket, because I was just in California for 2 weeks to visit Alex and his girlfriend and the new baby who is 2 months old, and Bodhi showed up and my mom came in. Rich stayed behind because he has a new job and he couldn't get away for the couple weeks that I was gone. So we had our whole family together. Anyway, so Alex opens up his Easter basket and he has all this candy. And he talked about how much he loves candy. And he said, We never had any candy growing up, so I'm obsessed with having candy. Interesting, right? I raised them in a home where we ate pretty clean food. They had ADHD, so I didn't give them dyes as much as possible. I was really mindful not to give them reds and yellows and dyes and blues. And we made a big deal about that, about not having candy very often. And here they are. They're like these, both of them are totally addicted to sugar. And I didn't create an environment that said, sure, eat all the junk food that you want. That was not at all what our house was. But we did have a house that had alcohol in it. And so it makes sense that it would be easy for them to choose that as their solution. Well, I disagree with her final sentence, which says, it is your fault. I disagree with that because ultimately we all came from various upbringings that had various ways of being, whether you had parents who were so strict or so crazy or so enmeshed with their own dysfunction or had such high expectations. I mean, we all have this wild ride of humanity, and it comes in all shapes and sizes, and we get those patterns imprinted on us. Absolutely. And a lot of our core wounds come from these very complex relationships. It is the nature of being a human being. But in the end, we get to choose. Basically, starting around 16 years old, we are making a conscious decision. And then by the time you're in your early 20s, when your frontal cortex has really come in, then you're really beginning to make a decision. And I think that it's really complicated to take responsibility for your own life. It's so much easier to blame somebody else and to say, you did this to me. You made me feel this way. This is why I'm like this, is because you were like that. That really takes the responsibility off of ourselves to recognize that in each moment, we are choosing a way of living, a way of seeing. And that's why you're here, is because you're making that choice. And so when I recorded this episode in the beginning, I kind of went into more depth of what the stories are, that I had been in California for a couple days and was already kind of having this awareness around Alex's daily drinking and what that looks like. And that part of me that just wishes it was different, because of course I do. And I'm entitled to my feelings. I'm entitled to wish that they didn't have to go through what I did. But I pretty quickly moved to a place of acceptance and an awareness that it's really my discomfort that I'm experiencing in that situation, because I went through it. I know what all that feels like. I would just love for him to bypass all of that. And he and his girlfriend are doing a beautiful job with their son. Little Rocky's 2 months old. He is thriving. Was starting to smile and coo while I was there. And they're just their own people having their own life. Does it look like what I, ideally, quote unquote, would do? No, but it's not mine. It's not mine. They are doing a beautiful job at the house that they live in, the life that they live in, the relationship that they live in, and they're working their stuff out. And that was really helpful for me because it had been such a difficult birth, and I had gone home and not witnessed their day-to-day. So going and seeing their day-to-day was really healing for me. Well, then Bodhi comes into town and we have this great conversation about sobriety. And not 10 minutes later, he's drinking a beer. And I'm like, what happened to sobriety? And he said, oh, I'm not doing any drugs or anything. I'm just having beers every once in a while. And my heart just broke because I know the slippery slope that can take. But I get to choose what I'm going to do with those feelings. And in that experience of having these two kids who continue to choose the path that they're on, I went to my journal. I highly recommend journaling. Journaling allows you to, slow down your brain enough to not just be in the spin, and you have to have conscious time to think out, how do I feel? What is going on for me? And sometimes it needs to be the thing where you just dump and vent. We all are entitled to dumping and venting. But then it's a space where I connect to my higher self, and I connect to those parts of me that have been doing this soul recovery work for such a long time now. and have such success in the peace that I feel. And when I do that and I'm in the journal and I ask questions, I'll do a little cue for question and I'll say, how can I show up in this? What am I to learn about this for myself? What can I do here to love them and still be authentic to myself? And then I'll put a little A and I'll just start writing. And when you are asking your higher self and your connection to something greater still, to your higher power, for the answers that are not for them, the answers are for you. What I got back was, remember to stay in your lane. Remember to love them through whatever journey they have to take. Remember that you too, just like them, went through the darkness or used these tools. Remind yourself to be present in your most authentic, highest self. Love them unconditionally. Love them unconditionally, which means that whatever that journey is, that you allow them, as if we're allowing them, right? Like as if we have any control, that you accept whatever that is for them. But you're entitled to being disappointed. You're entitled to being heartbroken. You're entitled to being sad. And over the weekend, we had a lovely time together as a family, and there was a whole bunch of old behaviors that I am not a big fan of. And I watched how it pricked that part of me that has a very strong memory of some really, really difficult, hard times. And we've made it through those hard times. But then I had the memory about how much work we've all been doing. And that if I'm the one who's going to have control of my own thoughts, if I have the power to choose how I'm going to see it, if I'm going to do the practice, the principles that I told them, you get to pick your attitude, choose a good one in growing up, I get to be a participant in whether I'm going to go into that part of me wants to control and nitpick and blame and be shaming of these behaviors, or whether I'm going to recognize that they have to figure this out, which means that it might be okay. Maybe, there's that even keel. There's a lot of people who have pretty steady drinking their whole life, and it just is the way that they do it. And I can't be the one to judge and to say that it's going to look any different. And it might have to go down a dark road because that's their path to take. Now, I have many of you that either work with me in coaching or have sent emails. And I am so appreciative of your communication with me, either through the one-way texts or through the emails, that have some really difficult situations with kids, where the kids are homeless, where you're trying to help them and they seem like they want the help, but then they don't, where they really are stuck in the darkness. And my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to you. And I want you to know how we feel those situations. And so it isn't something that is just so easy to say, oh, just detach with love, just follow the 7 detachments from the Al-Anon. It's really about staying conscious in your own experience. And this part that I continue to be so grateful for in my own healing journey and soul recovery, that working the 9 steps of soul recovery has given to me, is a place to come more and more strongly into my spiritually grounded self. Because my human self can't help but want to attach and connect to the solution for them, to fix it for them, to make it not be as hard for them, or to try to let them have some sort of insight if I could just save them from whatever. And it's not that I don't do some things that I probably should do differently. I think that's why you guys love me so much, is because I'm here with you. I get it. I'm not perfect. I'm not doing it perfect. Do I lay awake at night? Yes, I lay awake at night sometimes. But my prayer has changed from, oh, God, Spirit, Universe, do this for them, this beseeching prayer. Can you make it be this way for Bodhi? Make it be this way for Alex. Do this for them. Do this for them. The prayer has turned, and it's help me. I just want to take a quick break and invite you personally to join me in one of the upcoming soul recovery workshops or retreats. There's nothing more powerful than stepping into a sacred space with an open, supportive community where you can heal, grow, and reconnect with your authentic self. If you're ready to go deeper on your soul recovery journey, I'd love for you to work directly with me. The next virtual one-day soul recovery workshop is on Saturday, May 31st, live on Zoom. This is a wonderful way to immerse yourself in the 9-step soul recovery process from wherever you are. I hope that you will all join me with this. Or if you're looking for an in-person experience, join me for a 2-day retreat in either Lafayette, Colorado, July 19th and 20th, or in Asheville, North Carolina in September on the 13th and the 14th. Both retreats offer safe, nourishing environments to release those old patterns, gain new insights, and experience transformation surrounded by like-minded souls on their soul recovery journey. You're invited to take this next step with me, and you can visit recoveryoursoul.net to learn more and save your spot. I can't wait to support you in this sacred space. Back to the episode. Help me. Help me see this differently. Give me the strength to be able to love them unconditionally. Allow me to be at peace regardless of what's happening. Hold my heart here. Help me to be a light. Help me to see this from the most healthy perspective. Help me has become the prayer. And when I remember that that's really the only control that I have for me to help me, then that level of desperately wanting to make it be different loosens up. Because I couldn't catastrophize and go down dark holes because we were there. Because we were there. Or maybe you are in that moment where you are there. But soul recovery is this reminder that you are indeed being held by something greater still that can give you some just moment of hope and peace for yourself. That this interaction that we have with these people in our lives is complicated because ultimately we all have our own responsibility to choose our own happiness. And at one point on the trip with Alex, I told him that when I had left after the baby was born and it had been, such a kind of rough ride, that I found myself getting really afraid that he was going to fall down some sort of spiral and dark hole of depression again. And he looked me right in the eyes and he said, "Mom, I hope and pray I'll never be that dark again. I don't think I will." And I think, this is what he said, "I think every single day about how lucky I am." And he said, "I'm so grateful for my life. I'm grateful for my girlfriend. I'm grateful for the job that I have. I'm grateful to have a baby. I'm grateful to have this car." And he named off some very basic life gratitudes, which really gratitude is the foundation of a spiritual practice. And I could feel that knowing in him that he is so much stronger and so much more aware than I give him credit for, because I get caught in seeing and witnessing the addict 16-year-old who was completely fallen apart 10 years ago. Well, he was falling apart 10 years ago because he was only 16 and that was the best that he had at that time. So I get to choose where I'm going to show up for him and how I'm going to see him. And that conversation really shifted how we were together for the next 2 weeks, because I was able to come back into my grounded, centered place and to remind myself, I am going to see him as whole. And he's making these choices. So did he smoke weed while I was there? Absolutely. Did he drink almost every day I was there? He did. But you know what? He was showing up as himself and he was okay. He was good. He was attentive to his son. He was attentive to his girlfriend. They have a life that is their life. They are choosing and are responsible for their life. And he is choosing to not be sober. And at the end of the trip, I said some snarky comment of some sort that I probably said about sobriety. And he looked me in the eyes and he said, "At some point, you're going to have to stop trying to make me be sober." He's right. Because it is that piece that's crazy that even through everything, I'm still saying something kind of offhanded in the hopes that maybe he'll get it. And then with Bodhi, even today, I sent him the episode that he just did around his own sobriety. And I said, be careful. Addiction is a slippery slope, and remind yourself what wise and beautiful words you said in this podcast. And then I have to let it go, because I can catastrophize and go into a dark place that remembers and saw where he was 2 years ago or a year ago. Well, he's not in that place. And I'm responsible to recognize his wholeness. I'm responsible to accept him for wherever he's at. And this encouragement that I felt from Spirit in my journaling was this deep reminder to stay in my own healing, to recognize that we have to let go of this piece where we think that we know better for them, or this is what they should do. This is their soul's journey. I did create an environment from them when they were younger that normalized drinking. But I did not create them choosing addiction when they have had a mom who has been sober, solid in doing this practice, and has a whole career around how to be detached from your adult kids who are addicts for 7 years. And that there were 3.5 years in the 15 years ago where I was sober then too. And there was always this pull and this desire to try to move into a healthier place. We were always conscious of that. And they have that within them. So if I'm responsible for how I'm showing up, I'm going to be in that space. And again, I'm just thinking about those of you who have kids in particular who are in really dark places. And all the spirituality that I read and listen to reminds me that there's so much more than what we can see. And that the love that Spirit has for each of us isn't contingent on this wild ride of humanity that we have. And sometimes these choices that we make of whatever this experience is, whatever the karma is, it's hard to understand why that has to be the case. But the more that we step into unconditional love and see past that and allow them to have whatever that experience is, which again does not mean that we don't show up in our best self, or that we don't offer help when they are ready and needing of a hand. It's the part where we let go of control and we let go of that part that thinks it's our job to fix or make it be different, or for them to have a different life, or all the manipulation or the comments that we're trying to make them be something else. We know we're powerless over that. We've tried that. We've seen that it doesn't work. And the more that I let my boys have this life, which includes all these seasons of sobriety that they've both had ever since they were younger, because they both started using when they were about 13 years old. They've had DUIs and they've had rehabs and they've had, seasons of this and seasons of that. This is their journey of them finding themselves. And if I can just lift up enough to recognize that they too, just like me, are in their own process of discovering who they are and healing from their own wounds. And that if I can see them for their wholeness, they're more likely to see that for themselves, and they're more likely to not slip down the slippery slope. And again, they might. And I'm entitled to be sad and disappointed and have grief around it. And one of my recognitions is that one of the boundaries that I've set in a way is to not live in the same state as them. And I know many of you are in situations where you don't have that sort of luxury to be in a location that's different. But the ability for us to really be in our own experience, our own energy bubble, and to pull our energy back constantly and reset ourselves is the process of staying awake, about staying conscious in the midst of it. Even if you have a moment where you totally fall off and you're in the throes of control and upset and trying to fix it, and you come back and you remind yourself, I am powerless over their addiction. I'm powerless over their choices. They are indeed choosing it. I did not create this. I disagree with this woman's statement that says it is, she has it in capitals, it is your fault. I disagree. So many of us have come from very complicated upbringings, and we've made choices about what our lives are going to be like. And I'm here to support you to make the choice in your life to say that sometimes it means that you have to physically distance yourself, emotionally distance yourself, create that level of detachment that's always holding love. Love does not mean that you have to be in their presence. Love means that you unconditionally give them to the universe and you choose your own healthiest self and whatever that looks like for you. I want to hold space that my boys are smart enough, that they've witnessed enough of recovery, that they have these tools available to them, that they have to go through whatever their experiences are, and that they are entitled to their lives of whatever that is. And I have to remind myself of this on a regular basis because I want to fix it for them. I want to make it be different for them, but it's actually not my job to do that. My job is to heal me. My job is to ask Spirit to save me, to let go of my beliefs, my old wounds, to update my operating system, and to stand in my most authentic self. That's the greatest gift that I can give them, and to love them unconditionally. There's no black and white in this. It's gray. And each family and each situation is unique into your own. And the key is always to check in with your higher self and to allow yourself to ask the questions of how can I learn more about myself here? How can I take care of myself here? How can I put my oxygen mask on first here? How can I be in the way that I choose to see it, that recognizes that we all have permission and the right, really, to make the choices that we're going to make, but you do not need to suffer for the deeds of somebody else. You do not need to suffer from somebody else's choices, but you can feel sad from somebody else's choices. The suffering is the clinging and the wanting it to be different. Use your spiritual tools to give yourself what you need, to take care of yourself first. I'm going to continue to love my children. I'm going to continue to love them even more fully than ever, 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 and to witness them as the beautiful human beings that they are on this wild ride, and to continue to let go of control and see that this is an opportunity for me to heal me and to send them light. So when I do those prayers, just lastly, when I do those prayers to save me, then when I'm feeling more lowered in my anxiety, when I'm feeling more centered, more grounded, I visualize them surrounded by light. I visualize them surrounded by love. I visualize them seeing and making choices that are aligned for their highest good. But that doesn't mean that their highest good may not mean that there's challenges for them to overcome. We're here to have our own experience of our challenges. That was a recent episode as well. I love you all so much. And I cannot say enough how strong you are and how courageous you are to be on this journey, because what we're witnessing, especially with our grown kids or our family members or our spouses, is incredibly painful. It absolutely is. There's no doubt. But we can only choose our own way of being, and we must let go of control and that belief that we have that we are here or need to fix them, or that we may know better for what their experience needs to be. Until next time, namaste. Thank you for listening, and I hope that helps support your soul recovery process. Just a reminder that every Friday is the Recover Your Soul bonus podcast. This podcast is for Patreon members and Apple Podcast subscribers. And not only do you get an incredible interview or book study that comes with being part of that community, but your subscribing helps support this podcast and the Recover Your Soul community. If you want to listen to those bonus episodes but can't subscribe right now, do know that you can be a free Patreon member and have access for limited time to new episodes. Visit the website recoveryoursoul.net or check out the show links below for coupons and information for upcoming events. I thank you for sharing this podcast with your friends and family. I thank you for giving it 5 stars, and the reviews that are left bring tears to my eyes. I am honored to be part of your life. Together, we can do the work that will recover your soul. The Recover Your Soul podcast and its content is for educational purposes only and is not allied or representative of any organizations or religions. It's based on the opinions and experience of Reverend Rachel Harrison. Recover Your Soul claims no responsibility to any persons or entity for any liability, loss, damage, or cause alleged to be caused directly or indirectly as a result of its use. Applications or interpretations of the information represented herein. Take what you need and leave the rest.